Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Man in America. I'm your host, Seth Holhouse, coming to you live this Saturday evening. Thank you all so much for being here. It's always a pleasure to do these live shows and get to interact with all of you. So tonight's show, gosh, it could have been three or four shows. I think I just began to dive deep into a massive story. If you're looking at what's happening in America, the civil unrest, the crime, and not just America, around the world, and if you come to the conclusion, as I have, that a lot of what we're seeing today is the result of the social engineering. It is the result of people that have an immense amount of control and power over our society, and they have constructed a society around us that gives us culture and media and education. And all of this has been designed to create a certain worldview and to create certain reactions in the populace and control elections, any number of things. And with the recent stuff that's come out with P Diddy, right? So Sean Combs, Puff Daddy, P Diddy, Love, he's got all kinds of different names. A Pandora's box has opened up, and so what we're going to be looking at in tonight's show is not the specifics of, oh, this person was at a white party and they must be guilty. We're not going to be digging into that and trying to kind of find the Epstein connections to see who was, kind of touching kids or whoever. But we're going to be looking at the bigger picture of what this tells us about the social engineering here in America. And one of the big things I'll be looking at tonight is who's behind P. Diddy, because it's easy, same way with Jeffrey Epstein, right? So, and Diddy has also been referred to in many ways as the Epstein of the entertainment industry. But to look at it and say that, well, it was Epstein and he was acting alone or whatever is naive and maybe ignorant. The reality is that Epstein, when he was living, if he's dead or who knows what actually happened to him, he was a middleman. And so when these things happen, like with Diddy, a lot of people look at him and say, "Oh, this guy is the architect, and look what he's done." And the thing is that he was just a middleman. And so I think I've figured out a lot of the mechanisms behind what was controlling him and how it ties in actually even to some of the things that were controlling Epstein. And it goes pretty dark, but then it's also going to be getting into a lot of the more spiritual aspect of this battle. I will give you a warning for today's show. This is going to be an intense show. These are very intense topics. There's going to be some bad language. I've got some various videos and resources I found to show you. A lot of the videos have come out of rappers that were in the hip hop industry, and they said, "Look, this is way too much for me," and they pull out of it. It's them giving their experiences. And so, if you know a lot about modern rap, they swear a lot. So these rappers drop a lot of f bombs. So I'm going to give you that warning now, that if you've got kids watching or whatever, just be mindful of that there are going to be some F words that, it would have been too difficult for me to edit them before the show. So there's my warning. It's on you. Now, the other thing is that there are going to be some aspects of this discussion that are going to be disturbing. We're talking about a pretty massive blackmail operation that involves sodomy, rape, especially male on male. Like it's a big part of the hip hop industry, unfortunately, which we'll be looking at. Not like looking and seeing bad pictures, but just talking about. And we're also talking about some of the more spiritual and satanic and the dark aspects of this. So just I'm just giving my little warning for tonight's episode. But before we jump into it, I just want to thank everyone who's watching on Rumble. Rumble, my favorite platform. They promote free speech. They're fantastic people. Make sure you hit that green follow button. If you're watching over on YouTube or Facebook or anything else, go to Rumble. Support the free speech platform, Rumble or Twitter. Those are or X, right? Those are the two places. The other thing is, before we jump in, I do have a question for you folks. Are your savings safe? Okay. So with every passing day, the value of the dollar erodes. It's weakened by overprinting and rampant inflation. And now, as the BRICS nations accelerate their de-dollarization plan to collapse the dollar, the risk only grows. Imagine waking up one morning to find your hard-earned savings worth only a fraction of what they were. And honestly, it's happening faster than you think. But you still have a choice, a simple shift. One decision can protect your wealth from the collapse. So, folks, moving even a small portion of your savings into gold and silver could be the key to securing your financial future. Gold and silver have stood the test of time. They're not just metals, they're safe havens. They're impervious to the whims of inflation and economic turmoil. In fact, when there's turmoil, they actually go up in value. And so you look what's happening today, I'd probably be betting on more turmoil coming. So while the dollar loses value, though, gold and silver are standing strong. So, folks, the time to act is now before the dollar weakens even further. Safeguard your savings with noble gold. Imagine the peace of mind, knowing that your wealth is protected, that you're going to have assets to pass on to your children. It's simple, it's safe, and it's something you can do today. So, folks, move some of your savings from the vulnerable IRAs and 401ks into the enduring strength of gold and silver. Because when the dollar fails, you'll be glad that you did. And there's no better company to work with than Noble Gold. So protect your future. Act now. Call 626-654-1906 or visit goldwithseth.com to get your free gold and silver investment guide. So again, goldwithseth.com or 626-654-1906. All right, so folks, diving into the show, we're just going to start with some of the more kind of highlights and catching us back up, to what's going on right now with, Puff Daddy, Sean Combs. I'm going to call him Diddy for the simplicity of today's show because he has about 35 different nicknames. I'm going to choose Diddy. So that's my name for him during the entire show. It's Diddy. Okay, so let's get my first, show here. Similar to Mr. Epstein, unfortunately. So as you're probably well aware now, Diddy has been arrested. He's in prison or he's in jail. But he was just placed on suicide watch. So this is always a big red flag, okay, when someone's placed on suicide watch. Now, I'm not saying that he wouldn't commit suicide because a lot of people, when they're in these situations, they do, right? But it also shows that maybe this person is a target of some sort of assassination attempt, right? Like Epstein. It's like, did Epstein kill himself? I have my doubts, okay? But the fact that he's on suicide watch, it shows you something is going on. That there's stuff that there's people that are worried about what he can say. There's people that are concerned about what he said. We've also had massive resignations of CEOs, like powerful CEOs, especially in the music industry, that are stepping down um, right around this time. So that's also a big deal as well, which we're going to be getting into that a little bit more. But jumping into this, I want to start with this right here. So Candace Owens covered this. I think this was actually today or yesterday. So Kim Porter, so Diddy's assistant and the mother of some of his children, allegedly stumbled upon copies of these sex tapes of Diddy and these young kids that were hidden in his vault. So Porter reportedly made copies of the tapes to protect herself, claiming they contained things that she could have never imagined. Not long after discovering the tapes, Porter tragically passed away from pneumonia, though some members of her family remain convinced that Diddy was involved in her untimely death. So where are the copies of these tapes now? So I'm going to start with playing this. It's a 1 minute and 1 second clip from Candace that just helps us kind of set the stage for our discussion today. So let me go and play this for you.
In the book, Porter allegedly recounts discovering and making copies of the sex tapes that Diddy made of himself having sex with young boys that he was managing, including an alleged tape involving an 18-year-old pop star who went on to become a household name. Porter alleges that when she discovered those videotapes of Sean and his sexual encounters in the bedroom in this vault, she made copies of them as protection for herself. Realized that this is a very dangerous situation. I'm going to make copies for protection for myself, and included it as a part of her plan to leave him. But the memoir says that when she watched back the tapes, she was so shocked because there were things, quote, some of the tapes had things I would have never expected. The gay parties are one thing, but the young boys, like the two hip hop stars formerly managed by Diddy and the then 18-year-old pop star, I would have never known.
So there's a lot of speculation on who this pop star is that she talks about, right? And there's a lot of folks that believe it's Justin Bieber, which we'll be getting into. But for all of us that have been like shouting at the rooftops that there's massive, pedophile and child sex trafficking and all kinds of terrible stuff that's happening at the high levels of our society. And for the people that have always called us conspiracy theorists or whatever they want to call us, there's some vindication in this. I mean, here we have one of the most powerful people in the entertainment industry that has this woman coming out and saying that she found these tapes of him sleeping with young boys, but it gets deeper and darker than that. So we're going to move on to the kind of continuation of this. So there's a video I'm going to play now with some former rappers. It's actually two different videos talking about what happens and how they get someone into a contract. Now, this is one of the videos I was kind of warning you a little bit about because there's a lot of F words, but it's also disturbing stuff. So, because, okay, look, you have Kim Porter coming out saying, okay, yes, she found these videos, and these are the videos of Diddy having sex with these young rappers or these young pop stars. And so you think, okay, well, was that just because, he's gay and a pedophile perhaps, and he, enjoys these young kids, but then why is he filming it? And is it blackmail to keep them in line? Or is it something much deeper? And is it related to their entire music career? So I'm going to play this next video here. It's maybe 2.5 minutes long or so. Now the caption here, this is on Twitter, it says that it's a rapper called Smart. Look, I'm not like a rap guy, so you probably would have guessed that I'm not a big rap fan, but so I'm not sure who this rapper is, but just listen to what he says. And then there's a video that follows this one they're both about a minute and a half long, where it continues, because this helps us start to frame what's happening in this industry. Okay, so we'll go and play this for you. Make sure the volume is sufficient. Okay, let's go ahead and get going. Well, we got the little spinning wheel there. That's odd. I had all these loaded up properly. Let me try again. Okay, here we go.
So much. See what happened?
Okay.
They got rituals on to see you got the right one.
I don't know about rituals.
I never sold myself.
See what
I never did no gay
right
shit.
Here.
So I don't feel uncomfortable saying about it. What I told you, the devil's job is to take as many souls as possible. The music industry is satanic. When I tell you it's still the same gatekeepers, what I mean by that is a company called Vivendi. Period. Vivendi. Y'all can Google that. Vivendi owns Viacom. It's umbrella companies. This shit don't change, right? That's one. Two, with the music business, once they see you got potential to be influential over the masses, so when they get proposition and they see a car, they don't know, don't drink after a nigga. They don't know a nigga going.
They never
and
been
then what happened?
They don't know the
now look,
that
I'm gonna tell you,
right.
look, I'm gonna tell you a story, because I ain't really trying to put niggas out there, right? But a nigga in the studio, we from the hood. I used to stick niggas up, bro. Babyface, I used to book niggas. So I'm always on point, bro. I'm on point right now, my nigga. Always on my square. But a nigga that's a square, he don't know. So he don't know why shit drink. He don't know. So now he drink behind a nigga. He get drugged. They rape this nigga. They rape this nigga. Videotape it. Then when he in a meeting, they give him a shitty contract. They play the video of him getting fucked by like 3 niggas. He ain't never been through no shit like that. So he like, man, what? Fuck it, I'm just gonna sign. And you gonna give me money? So rather than get that story put out, he gonna sign that bad contract, which is the 360 deal. He gonna take that advance, which is recuperable anyway. So they gonna give him the money just to take back and own the rights to his shit.
I'm sitting here with 5 niggas that got the same look like
I'm telling y'all, they fucking niggas around out here. Y'all, they are fucking niggas around. They giving niggas some shit that ain't what you think. You fuck around, wake up tomorrow, shit, ass nigga with a footy on, and don't know what the fuck you just did. I mean, real shit. Your motherfucker meat feels the fucked up and your ass hurting. You don't know what the fuck to say. You don't know who to tell. But this is what the game is going to. That's what it's going to. Then, here it is, it's time for a contract to come out. Nigga wanna sign you for 5 years, you like, nah, dog. So you don't wanna sign with us. Nah, not for no nah. Man, pop in the tape. Show this nigga what he did last night. I'm serious. Dude, this real shit I'm telling y'all though. Pop in the tape. You sitting that motherfucker like, man, what the fuck? Yeah, well, what the fuck? That's what happened. You got fucked. What you gonna do? You gonna sign that contract. You don't want nobody in the hood to see that shit. You don't want this shit to get out, dog. I'm telling y'all, and this is what I'm telling y'all like this. These niggas that you see constantly high, they're not getting high because they like to get high. They getting high because they know what they done done.
Send the stylist at them for.
Man, so I'm not sure if you heard the second half of that video was not as easy to hear, but he said, these guys you see always doing drugs and getting high, like they're not getting high because they enjoy it. They're getting high because they're escaping. And so if you look at both of those videos, what they proclaim is that, let's just say there's this young up and coming talent. There's a lot of promise. There's our whole culture is built on like, oh, maybe you'll be famous one day. You can be a famous musician. I mean, it's so ingrained in our culture, this idol worship, right? Look at American Idol, right? The idol of America is literally, like, in terms of the mainstream media, the idol of America is the young up and coming person that has this talent that makes it big, and it's everyone's dream. And so what happens is you have all these up and coming people, and what they're saying is that they take them, and then they go to some sort of party, they get invited to some sort of party, something happens, they take a drink. The one guy that was in the barbershop talking, he's like, look, he's kind of saying, I'm from the hood, I don't take a drink, right? He's smart, right? He's a guy that has situational awareness, and his head's on a swivel, he's watching. But for some other person, like a young kid that say is a YouTube sensation like Justin Bieber was, they don't know, they're taking a drink and they're excited. Before you know it, the next day they're sitting down in in a conference room with these executives, and they slide a contract in front and say, here's your 360 universal contract. We basically own you, own your name, own everything you do for all of your life. And the person might be like, I'm not going to sign that. Like, this is not good. And then they say, okay, well, let's play the video. They roll the video, and that's it. They're compromised. And this is just the beginning. So now this is actually, it's helpful for me to understand this, because I have to keep this in mind when I'm watching all these different celebrities. Like, let's take Taylor Swift as an example. Okay. I don't know anything about her background, or, I've done some digging, but nothing that's worth covering in this show. I don't want to focus on that, but she's someone that has really come out to represent a very liberal agenda, or say a Lady Gaga, for instance, right? These mega stars. The question I have is that, are they even acting of their own will? Because if that's the situation, and they've got that kind of blackmail on you, and from my understanding, the blackmail gets worse and worse and worse. So the more famous you become, the more compromising situations that you're going to end up in. And that's all by design, because we live in a structure, the world right now. Okay. The power structure in our world is that of evil, right? It just where we are in history. Now, I hope it changes. I really do. I think it will change, but it's just where we are now, is that the more evil you are, there's opportunities to rise in power. Like our government, our world is being run by criminal cabals. I mean, it's something we talk about pretty often. So with that in mind, they're not going to let some, this random person become ultra famous and not have control over them. And so this is how they do it. So when you see someone like Kamala, or it's not Kamala, Taylor come out and endorse Kamala, right? And there's been a lot of discussions about, are these, with the P. Diddy tapes, the Diddy tapes, that a lot of the people that are now coming out and endorsing Kamala publicly have been seen with Diddy. So there's questions of saying, okay, is there blackmail on these people that's forcing them to do this? Because, they're, these A-list actors, they're smart people. They see what's going on in this country. Do you really think that they're that far into the liberal agenda? They're so excited about Kamala? And maybe some of them are, but maybe some of them are forced to, because they've got so much blackmail on them that they have to just toe the line. And so when you go back and you look at what those guys have said, those rappers talking, this is just one small slice of the pie. It's one small slice. But I want to show you now, a video of Justin Bieber, right? Because I actually, to be honest, I feel so bad for this kid. Like, I feel so bad for this kid. As much as, say, a couple of years ago, I would look at him the same way I would look at Taylor Swift and be like, okay, what's this guy doing? And why is he promoting all this trash? And why is he doing these things? He's covered in tattoos. What's the example he's setting for our children? But now I honestly I just feel compassion for him. I feel sorry. I feel empathy. But I'm gonna play this video for you because this is it's intense. Okay, so here's a video. I'll just play it for you. It's about 2 minutes long, and this is showing, I think, one of the earlier interactions that Diddy had with Bieber. I think Bieber was 15 years old in this video. Keep that in mind. So before I play this, there's nothing bad in this video. Okay, there's nothing kind of inappropriate. But put yourself in the mindset of being a 15-year-old kid walking through this, being told by some ultra rich famous person, I'm going to give you this Lamborghini, I'm going to give you that mansion. How would that affect you as a 15-year-old kid? You would lose all sense of that kind of like, hey, something's wrong here. Like you would just be you're over the moon. But check this out. I'm going to play this for you. Okay. It's 1:55.
You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna let you rock this every time you come to LA. Yeah, this will be yours. So every time you come to LA, it's a little dusty, but we'll get the front shot in.
Man.
And out. Minute.
Woo. Okay.
Okay.
All right, so I'm gonna be driving this next year.
Yeah, when you get 16, you come down there, you gotta, wear your seat.
I mean, I'm 15. You could ride in the passenger seat. I got my permit. Not yet.
No.
All right, 16.
You're not ready.
16.
Let's slow down. Let's slow down, Justin.
Okay.
Let's slow down. Okay.
One step at a time.
But yeah, the keys is yours. When you get 16, you're good to go.
I'm good to go.
Yeah.
All right.
And then when you get 18, you get the house. You get the mansion.
Okay. I get the mansion.
Yeah.
So where are we off to now?
And where would you like to go?
I mean, wherever you want to go. Where are we going?
So check this out, yo. Justin, you ever seen the movie 48 Hours? Right now, he's having 48 hours with Diddy, him and his boy. They're having the times of their lives, like where we hanging out and what we doing.
I'm just going to say something real quick. Look at the smile on this kid's face. To me, as I see this innocent, excited 15-year-old boy. He's sitting next to Diddy. He's got a Lamborghini in front of him. He's thinking, oh my gosh, my life is now amazing. I've made it. And look at him. You can see it. Look at that smile. You can see it. Right. Anyway, just again, put yourself in your shoes of him as a 15-year-old kid. Now, what Diddy says next, though, is really disturbing. Let's listen to this.
We can't really disclose, but it's definitely a 15-year-old's dream. I have been given custody of him. He signed to Usher.
I'm signed to Usher.
I had legal guardianship of Usher when he did his first album. I did Usher's first album. I don't have legal guardianship of him, but for the next 48 hours, he's with me. So and we gonna go full crazy.
I'm going crazy.
Crazy.
So again, I'll cut in. So he's got him for 48 hours, basically under his legal guardianship, and he says we're gonna go crazy.
I'm taking this out tonight.
What you want to do? What you want to do over the next 48 hours?
48 hours. Let's go. Let's just go get some girls. Let's go hang with some girls.
Man.
Gosh, and the fact that he goes into, there's different clips of this video, but he's talking about how what they can't talk about what they're going to be doing, right? He implies that there's something nefarious happen. I mean, they're not even really hiding it, but this is how it happens. This is how they make a mega star. Is they go through this process. Now, if you go back into Bieber's history and his family, the question is like, where are the parents? Well, his dad, there's a lot of crazy stuff happening with his dad now, but it seems like his mom is the one that kind of put him into this. That kind of sold him into this. I'm not saying she sold him directly, but the parents, and this is what you realize, the parents are oftentimes behind this, right? So when you see this kind of stuff happening, you realize, gosh, the parents were involved. Like why would you let your 15-year-old boy go on a 48-hour, like kind of no contact, it's all secret adventure with Diddy, right? I don't know, but but check this out, right? So that was obviously, to me, it looked like from the body language and everything, it was one of their earlier interactions. Okay, he was 15. Here's another video. It's only 18 seconds long. So this is another video of when he's also 15. Maybe this was maybe a couple months after that watch I'm not sure what it was, but watch this, 18 seconds.
It's good, selling out arenas and everything. Starting to act different, huh? You ain't been calling me and hanging out the way we used to hang out.
Well, I mean, you try to get in contact with me, through all my, partners and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But you never really got my number, so. Correct.
Okay.
My number?
Yeah. Everything's good. Selling out arenas.
Yeah, so watch that again. So look at the body language of Justin Bieber here. So here you have in this video, you've got Diddy saying, "Hey man, like, why aren't you calling me anymore? I want to hang out. Like you're avoiding me." Look at Bieber's body language here. It's something's really, really, really off. Something's very off.
And everything starting to act different, huh? You ain't been calling me and hanging out the way we used to hang out.
Well, I mean, you try to get in contact with me, through all my, partners and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But you never really got my number, so. Correct.
Okay.
My number?
Yeah. Everything's good. Selling out arenas and.
Man, it's not good, not good. And so here, okay, so Kim Porter, right, going back to the book. So in her book, so Kim Porter, as we established, right, she was she had children with Diddy and she was his former assistant. So it says in her book, Kim Porter shares a shocking revelation of discovering and copying, as we mentioned, Diddy allegedly made of himself engaging in sexual acts with men he managed, including what she said, a tape involving an 18-year-old pop star who later became a household name. I wonder who this young male pop star was. So check this out though. This is much more recent. Okay. And look at Bieber. Like, look what's happened to him. Okay. But watch what this interaction here. You can see, to me, it looks like what he's doing, what Diddy is doing, is he's feeling him down for whether he's got a wire on him. So watch this again. It's 20 seconds, but it's a very strange interaction. Yeah. Anyway, weird stuff. And again, like, when I think about Bieber, I see more recent videos of him, and I guess he actually, from my understanding, within the past couple of years, he found God, and that's really kind of changed his direction. I mean, good for him if he did. I mean, I don't know how you would escape. I guess the only way you can escape from this kind of a pit and of a trap is through God. I guess the only way I can make sense of it. But so continuing though, so this was just Bieber. So what we've established though is, and it's kind of a shocking thing to understand, and I've been hearing about these things for years, because I've been studying this stuff for quite some time. But what I've kept coming across was this overall concept that a lot of the prominent rappers and producers and the people running the music labels are homosexual, that they're gay men. And that I've heard so many stories about people walking in to sign the contract, and they're told to get onto the couch first before they can, because they're sodomized, right? It's a way of breaking them, right? As a man, when that happens to you, like, it's never happened to me, thank goodness, right? I hope it never does, but it breaks something in you. And this is the point, right? It's almost like if you take a wild animal, you have to break the wild animal for it to realize that you're its master now. But this is what a lot of people don't really realize, because these rap stars, the projection they give off is ultra masculine, and they're all talking about, kind of they're women, and it's very hypersexualized. So you'd think that they're just like, sex addicts with women, but it seems like a lot of them are actually gay, and that it's a big part of the ritual. It's a big part of how the industry works, how people are controlled, how they're blackmailed. I've heard, there's been a lot of stuff coming out now, like Will Smith, his bodyguard was coming out, saying that he caught him in some pretty kind of awkward positions, to say the least. But even so, let's look at Tupac, right? So Tupac, who was, a hardcore gangster. And let me show you a video of Tupac. This is Tupac when I think he was maybe 18 years old. Right. So the Tupac, I'm not sure if you listen to Tupac much. I didn't, but I always thought of him as this gangster. He always had his bandana on. But look at this video. This is him. I'm not going to play the whole thing.
Okay. My name is Tupac Shakur, and I attend Tamalpais High School and I'm 17 years old.
Okay. Do you like being 17?
It's like 17 is such a weird age. It's such a in the middle age. You're not 18 yet, and you're older than 16. So. But I like it. It's nice. It's like a learning stage for me.
Do you wish you could be 18 and when you get some more rights?
Well, 18 will bring lots of responsibilities that I don't want, but it'll bring respect that I feel like that's the only way I can get it. You know, I try to be as mature as I can be and demand it wherever I can get it. But 18 is like, you're an adult. You like today when I had to sign the release form, I felt so bad because I couldn't sign it myself. I had to go and get my mother's and all that. But
So I'm not going to continue playing that, but you can see it's, I mean, to me, he's a very feminine looking guy. I wouldn't look at that and think, oh yeah, he's a gangster rapper. But what's kind of crazy is that like literally the past couple of days, there's been new revelations coming out that have said that it says just when things can't look worse for P. Diddy, Tupac's murder suspect told police that he allegedly paid $1 million to have Tupac killed. So this is also kind of crazy, right? So we know Tupac was killed. There's a lot of things that, you know, okay, what was behind it? There's conspiracy behind it, but like literally this came out, you know, within the past couple of months that they're saying that he was the person behind having Tupac killed. And you know, if you look, I should have put a list together, but if you look at how many musicians, how many young musicians end up overdosing, dying, you know, Kurt Cobain, you know, Janis Joplin, Chester Bennington, like the list goes on. There's so many of these young musicians that end up dying, whether they die of a suicide, they hang themselves, or you know, Isaac Cappy, you know, the you know, Hollywood is, you know, found hanging off of a bridge. And so you can see that what happens, my guess is that people hit a limit, right? They hit a limit with this and they can't keep going, and they might start showing signs of talking about it, right? Because imagine the torture of being someone like a Bieber, for instance, and being someone that is up on stage and everyone thinks that you've got the best life in the world, yet you're actually a slave. Like honestly, the fact that the guy hasn't, you know, committed suicide, living with this, it shows a lot of strength in character in some form. But I think there's a lot of people they can't handle it, so they end up killing themselves. Look at how many of these young stars kill themselves. I mean, it's really, really screwed up. But you know, one thing though that you have to take a look at here is, okay, what's the bigger picture in this, right? When you really take a step back, and this is where we get into the social engineering aspect of it. What's the bigger picture? Why is this industry as it is? Why are they pushing all of this gang violence, and you know, what's behind it? And so I've got now something very interesting is a secret letter. So basically what happened, and this was, I think this was in the early 90s that this came out. Actually, no, this is 2000. So the guy was talking about the early 90s, but it's 2012. That basically one day, all these different hip hop blogs and different people in the media received this letter, right? This letter that was explaining what was happening with the rap industry. So I'm going to read this letter. It's not like crazy long, and I'm a pretty quick reader. Pardon me, but I want you just listen to this, okay? Because this starts to help you make sense of the social engineering. And so I'm going to get into this, but then we're going to go deep into some much bigger stuff that kind of is behind all this. Okay, so this is called, let me get a drink my tea before I start reading. The secret meaning that changed rap music and destroyed a generation. It says, hello, after more than 20 years, I've finally decided to tell the world what I witnessed in 1991, which I believe was one of the biggest turning points in popular music and ultimately American society. I've struggled for a long time weighing the pros and cons of making this story public, as I was reluctant to implicate the individuals who were present that day. So I've simply decided to leave out names and all the details that may risk my personal well-being, and that those who were, like me, dragged it into something they weren't ready for. So between the late 80s and early 90s, I was what you may call a decision maker with one of the more established companies in the music industry. I came from Europe in the early 80s and quickly established myself in the business. The industry was different back then. Since technology and media weren't accessible to people like they are today, the industry had more control over the public and had the means to influence them any way they wanted. This may explain why in early 91, I was invited to attend a closed-door meeting with a small group of music business insiders to discuss rap music's new direction. Little did I know that we'd be asked to participate in one of the most unethical and destructive business practices I've ever seen. The meeting was held at a private residence on the outskirts of LA. I remember about 25 to 30 people being there, most of them familiar faces. Speaking to those I knew, we joked about the theme of the meeting, as many of us did not care for rap music and failed to see the purpose of being invited to a private gathering to discuss its future. Among the attendees was a small group of unfamiliar faces who stayed to themselves and made no attempt to socialize beyond their circle. Based on their behavior and formal appearances, they didn't seem to be in our industry. Our casual chatter was interrupted when we were asked to sign a confidentiality agreement preventing us from publicly discussing the information presented during the meeting. Needless to say, this intrigued and in some cases disturbed many of us. The agreement was only a page long but very clear on the matter and consequences, which stated that violating the terms would result in job termination. We asked several people what this meeting was about and the reason for such secrecy, but couldn't find anyone who had answers for us. A few people refused to sign and walked out. No one stopped them. I was tempted to follow, but curiosity got the best of me. A man who was part of the unfamiliar group collected the agreements from us. So quickly after the meeting began, one of my industry colleagues, who shall remain nameless like everyone else, thanked us for attending. He then gave the floor to a man who only introduced himself by the first name and gave no further details about his personal background. I think he was the owner of the residence, but was never confirmed. He briefly praised all of us for the success we'd achieved in our industry and congratulated us for being selected as part of this small group of decision makers. At this point, I began to feel slightly uncomfortable at the strangeness of this gathering. The subject quickly changed as the speaker went on to tell us that the respective companies we represented had invested in a very profitable industry which could become even more rewarding with our active involvement. He explained that the companies we work for had invested millions into the building of privately owned prisons, and that our positions of influence in the music industry would actually impact the profitability of these investments. I remember many of us in the group immediately looking at each other in confusion. At the time, I didn't know what a private prison was, but I wasn't the only one. Sure enough, someone asked what these prisons were and what any of this had to do with us. We were told that these prisons were built by privately owned companies who received funding from the government based on the number of inmates. The more inmates, the more money the government would pay these prisons. It was also made clear to us that since these prisons are privately owned, as they become publicly traded, we'd be able to buy shares. Most of us were taken back by this. Again, a couple of people asked what this had to do with us. At this point, my industry colleague who had first opened the meeting took the floor again and answered the questions. He told us that since our employers had become silent investors in this prison business, it was now in their interest to make sure that these prisons remained filled. Our job would be to help make this happen by marketing music which promotes criminal behavior, rap being the music of choice. He assured us that this would be a great situation for us because rap music was becoming an increasingly profitable market for our companies. And as an employee, we'd also be able to buy personal stocks in these prisons. Immediately, silence came over the room. You could have heard a pin drop. I remember looking around to make sure I wasn't dreaming and saw half the people with dropped jaws. My daze was interrupted when someone shouted, "Is this an effing joke?" At this point, things became chaotic. Two of the men who were part of the unfamiliar group grabbed the man who shouted out and attempted to remove him from the house. A few of us, myself included, tried to intervene. One of them pulled a gun and we all backed off. They separated us from the crowd and all four of us were escorted outside. My industry colleague who had opened the meeting earlier hurried out to meet us and reminded us that we had signed an agreement and would suffer the consequences of speaking out about this publicly or even with those who attended the meeting. I asked him why he was involved with something this corrupt, and he replied that it was bigger than the music business and nothing we'd want to challenge without risking consequences. We all protested as he walked back into the house. I remember word for word the last thing he said. "It's out of my hands now. Remember, you signed an agreement." Then he closed the door behind him. The men rushed us to our cars and actually watched until we drove off. A million things were going through my mind as I drove away, and eventually I decided to pull over and park on a side street in order to collect my thoughts. I replayed everything in my mind repeatedly, and it all seemed very surreal with myself. I was angry with myself for having not taken more of an active role in questioning what had been presented to us. I'd like to believe the shock of it all is what suspended my better nature. After what seemed like an eternity, I was able to calm myself down and make it home. I didn't talk or call anyone that night. The next day back at the office, I was visibly out of it, but blamed it on being under the weather. No one else in my department had been invited to the meeting, and I felt like a sense of guilt for not being able to share what I had witnessed. I thought about contacting the other three who were kicked out of the house but didn't remember their names and thought that tracking them down would probably bring unwanted attention. I considered speaking up publicly at the risk of losing my job, but I realized I'd probably be jeopardizing more than my job, and I wasn't willing to risk anything happening to my family. I thought about those men with guns and wondered who they were. I've been told this was bigger than the music business, and all I could do was let my imagination run free. There were no answers and no one to talk to. I tried to do a little bit of research on private prisons, but didn't uncover anything about the music business's involvement. However, the information I did find confirmed how dangerous the prison business really was. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. Eventually, it was as if the meeting had never taken place. It all seemed surreal. I became more reclusive and stopped going to any industry events and less professionally obligated to do so. On 2 occasions, I found myself attending the same function as my former colleague. Both times, our eyes met, but nothing more was exchanged. So anyway, he kind of continues on a little bit, but this is so basically what he's saying is that the companies that own the rap labels, the music industry, also are investing massively in private prisons because they realize they could socially engineer the listeners of rap music to become criminals, which then puts them into the private prisons, which is a huge, huge moneymaker. Now, I'm going to play a video for you because it gets even more real. So this is a video of Ice Cube talking about this, right? So let's go ahead and just take a quick look at this. Actually, I'm just going to full screen this one for you real quick. This is Ice Cube talking about it. This is about it's about 2 minutes long, his actual section here. So check this out.
Same people who own the labels own the prisons.
Literally the same people?
Literally the same people who own the labels own private prisons. The records that come out are really geared to push people towards that prison industry.
But they didn't make you write those lyrics.
It's not about making somebody write the lyrics. It's about being there as guardrails to make sure certain songs make it through and certain songs don't. Some records are made by committee, meaning record company guys sit around and tell the artists, this is hot, say that, do this. We're gonna have this guy write the lyrics. We're gonna have that. You have, the record company pushing the narrative. Some social engineering going on here to make sure those prisons stay full.
John Holmston, a retired CIA agent, has admitted.
So there you go. Him kind of corroborating the article, the story. And there's other videos I found in researching this where someone went through and actually found exactly what he was talking about. So what they found was there was a massive prison company around that time that had bought up all these different private prisons, but they had a specific, in the purchase of these prisons, they had a specific clause that the prisons had to remain 90% full, which is strange because how can you buy a prison with a clause that the prison needs to remain 90% full of inmates? So this is, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. So now we're looking at, so we have, so what we've established here, we have, Diddy and the blackmail rings. We have the up and coming stars that are being raped and sodomized and forced into contracts that are, kind of like they're selling their soul to the devil in a lot of ways, right? For that whole process. So we now have that. So now they gain control over them. So they control, you're gonna write this music, right? As Ice Cube was talking about. Right. So this is the kind of music you're going to be producing. This is exactly what you're going to be saying. This is the persona you're going to be putting forward. It doesn't matter who you are in your private life. As a rapper, as someone who's influencing culture and engineering culture, this is how you're going to act. And so it looks like that what the guy talked about with the prison system actually makes sense. That it was done in a way that it basically put people behind bars, like a mass amount of people. And if you look at the statistics and you look at the crime statistics, it's a lot of the blacks that are sitting in the prisons. It's not a racist comment. It is a race related comment, right? It's a statistic, right? So is it any coincidence that this rap music, which is promoting, gang violence and shooting and killing and drug usage and drug trafficking and shooting police and all this, is it any coincidence that we have this proliferation of these blacks going to prison for the same stuff that these rap songs glorify? But here's what's crazy, So if you look around what's happening right now, so this plan has been in place, I think, for a very, very long time. And I don't think it's just about money. It's about social engineering. And it's funny because a lot of people, they say, whether they're talking about big pharma or big government, they say, follow the money. It's all about the money. It's like, actually, no. like the people that we're up against own the world, right? Like I've heard estimates of, some of these families of up to $500 trillion in assets. I'm not even kidding, right? If you're a family that's been running the banking system, right, out of London for like hundreds and hundreds of years, could you amass that kind of money? Absolutely, you could, right? So it's not about money. It's not about like, oh, the private prisons, that's the way to get rich. Of course, they're going to find all these money making schemes. But the bigger thing is this social engineering. And one of the largest social engineering efforts or experiments or projects happening over the past, say, 100 years is the social engineered collapse of America, right? Because we know that they have to destroy America before they can bring in some sort of one world totalitarian government. So if you then look at this, is it obviously the whole prison system thing makes sense, but I think it's a lot more of actually the social engineering is about creating race wars. It's about creating violence. So look at this. Here's a video. I'm just gonna. I'll leave the sound very low. This is a video of a cycling gang, a bunch of kids, right? Mostly black. Okay, just a statement. Maybe some Hispanic, whatever. And you see this all over the place. Now they all run into a 7-Eleven and they destroy it, they rob it, they steal. They're all coming out with, they're stealing $6 worth of chips. I mean, it's so stupid, but we're seeing this happen all over America. Now you could say, is it the kids' fault? Well, yeah, of course. I mean, it's some part of it is their fault because it's personal responsibility. You're responsible for your actions, but the thing is that this is social engineering that does this, right? Look at the inside of this store, right? The poor guy that sacrificed so much to build this business, and this is what's happening. So this is the social engineering part of it. But then, so we're looking at, okay, actually, this is my next video to show you, is what's behind this, okay? So remember I told you before, okay, I said, look, I think I figured out who's controlling Diddy. Because if you look at who's controlling Diddy and you look at the power that this guy has, it starts to make a lot of things make sense. So this is another kind of video that I'm going to show some different parts of. And this is going to show, I'll play it for you. It'll make sense. Now, one thing I'll say, though, in this video that he's talking about, there was information coming out about a retired CIA agent that fled to Russia, gained citizenship there, and did an interview where he revealed that the CIA was behind the social engineering of and the kind of attack and the overtaking of the hip hop movement. Now, I wanted to so bad to be able to show that information and tell you about it, but I couldn't find anything that backed it up. I only found one website that claimed it happened, and every other website, every other tweet was referencing this one website, but the one website, I couldn't find a single video or transcript of the original interview. So anyway, they're referencing that in this video, but this video right here helps kind of point to perhaps what's controlling this. So watch this.
Retired CIA agent who was granted a Russian residence permit in 2011 also claimed Lyor Cohen, commonly known as the tall Israeli who runs hip-hop, is a CIA asset. When it comes to engineering...
So the guy named Lyor, Lyor, Cohen, right? So I'll show you more about him. Anyway, keep listening.
Engineering culture, no one touches Lyor Cohen, Homestead admitted. He ended up promoting rappers such as Jay-Z and Kanye West, and more recently brought Migos and Young Thug to prominence. Some experts openly admit hip-hop nihilism, which was expressed in the use of harder, more self-destructive drugs like heroin, cocaine, and methamphetamine, pushed United States President Richard Nixon into the war on drugs, a campaign of prohibition of drugs and foreign military intervention, with the stated aim being to define and reduce the illegal drug trade within America and around the world. Quote, "The chaos we caused in America helped the government justify overseas wars of plunder to Middle America. The country wouldn't be where it is today without hip-hop."
So supposedly what this CIA as I said, was that this Lyor Cohen, in terms of the social engineering, in terms of the control of the hip hop industry, he said no one matches Lyor Cohen. They call him the tall Israeli. Okay, so who's Lyor Cohen? So here's his Wikipedia page. So Lyor Cohen, he's an American music industry executive and an entrepreneur. He's been actively involved in hip hop at various record labels for more than 30 years. This guy, he's a big, big deal. Okay. He's a big deal. Trust me. And I'll show you some more stuff about him. Anyway, what's also interesting is that he's married to a Chinese woman. Strange. I mean, I know that, look at Zuckerberg or, Mitch McConnell. There's all these very powerful people that just so happen to be married to Chinese. Now, of course, there's nothing wrong necessarily with a guy marrying a Chinese woman, but just when you see these like powerful figures like Rupert Murdoch, et cetera, married to these Chinese, it just raises some red flags, and pardon the pun there for the red flag thing. But I want to actually go a little more into detail. So check this out. This is Lyor Cohen. There's some bad language in here, but he's talking about the power he has over the hip hop industry. This is I'll play a short bit here, but you can see, okay, here's the guy, hear it from his own mouth.
All the groups and artists that Rush and Def Jam collectively that you were involved in and got to see develop, that's extraordinary in terms of
lucky motherfucker.
So this guy, the host, is praising him, saying, look, man, like you're involved in all these major artists. And so you hear Lyor saying, lucky mother effer, right? He's lucky, right? But watch this.
Lucky motherfucker. I've touched more rappers than everybody else combined. Okay? Period.
Strange statement. I've touched more rappers than anyone else combined, period.
Okay? American music, let's not only send guns around the world.
Right.
Let's send our culture. By being in Kazakhstan, Kazakhstan knows more about America through the movies and the music than they do by the guns. They can't even name the gun, but they can name you. They can book you. I'm glad that the American government, Anthony Blinken, big shout out to Anthony Blinken, okay? Our Secretary of State promoting and funding bipartisan support on funding American soft power around the world.
Cohen later promoted.
Man, so there you go, right? He's praising Blinken, right? Saying, okay, this guy's, Blinken, the American government, they're promoting this soft power of America, right? The cultural power, the cultural infiltration, right? And this is you look at the social engineering here in America of, okay, hey, let's engineer society. Let's turn the blacks into criminals. So we create civil unrest. And so then we can fill the prison systems, we can make money out the prison systems. And then when it's election year, we can make the blacks and the whites fight each other. We create more race wars. And then, they're going to be so focused on the other race that they're going to be, they're going to have to realize that it's us, the social engineers, are doing it all. So we keep them perpetually locked into a two-party system where they think that their vote is free. They think they've got democracy and freedom and everything, but actually it's a giant controlled system. That's where things are at, right? Now, this guy happens to be from Israel. Okay, now Israel has a lot of influence over America. Now, don't go call me an anti-Semite. Oh, Seth said Israel. He's an anti-Semite for pointing this out. Well, yeah, I mean, look at Epstein, okay, who we know absolutely had Mossad ties. Look at Ghislaine Maxwell. Look at her father, I think it was Robert Maxwell. Strong Mossad ties, right? Israeli special forces. We know the Mossad and the CIA are kind of hand in hand doing all kinds of things. So, again, you draw your own conclusions, but what I see here, when I see this guy, it's like this guy has a lot of power. He has a lot of power. Okay. And remember I said earlier, okay, talk about Diddy. Everyone says, oh, look at Diddy. He must be the kingpin. No, he's a middleman. He's a middleman. Actually, you want to know how you can tell that? Here's a picture right here, folks. Here's a picture of Cohen and Diddy. Now, if you know how to read body language, what he's saying right here, I own you. Look how he's holding his shoulder. Obviously, he's tall. He's known as a tall Israeli, right? Looking down at him, he's holding him like this. Like, this picture tells you all you need to know about who's controlling the rap industry. Now, of course, there's probably way more people than this. But the fact this guy is coming out and saying, look, he's, this Cohen, he's saying, I've touched more rappers than everyone else combined. This guy's behind this. He's started record companies. Okay, he's done so much. Actually, if you go back to his Wikipedia page, he managed Def Jam. He took on a leadership role at Warner Music. In 2012, he resigned and started his own independent label, 300 Entertainment. So on September 2016, he was named YouTube's global head of music. right? So this guy was the global head of music for YouTube. Okay, so he was born in New York City in 59 to Israeli immigrants. He grew up in LA, blah, 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 blah. Okay, but we continue looking here. Okay, yeah, he's a co-founder of 300 Entertainment. Okay, remember that. It's a major, major level. So it's here you go, 300 Entertainment. It'll pop up here. Is an American record label founded by Lyor Cohen, Kevin Liles, Todd Moskowitz, and Roger Gold. The label's roster includes acts across multiple genres such as hip hop, rock, pop, electronic. Actually, I'm gonna see who is on here. Okay, so here's some of the people that they've got on their record. Young Thug, Fetty Wap, sorry, these names. Mary J. Blige, No Savage, a bunch of different rappers. Okay, and there's all kinds of stuff. So in 2021. Warner Music Group acquired 300 for $400 million. Okay, so now this guy's mega, mega rich. And the estimates I saw, 150 million plus. Now, what's crazy with this, though? Okay, look at his co-founder, right? The second guy, right? Kevin Liles, right? So Kevin Liles is an American record executive and co-founder of and CEO of 300 Entertainment. In 2020, he was recognized by Billboard magazine as R&B Hip Hop Executive of the Year for both his efforts in activism and the continued success of Megan Thee Stallion. Okay, there you go, Megan Thee Stallion, right? So Megan Thee Stallion, who's the woman that played at one of Kamala's first major rallies, if you recall, I think it was down in Georgia. It was a big deal. They packed the stadium for Megan Thee Stallion. Okay, now what's crazy about this guy, Kevin Liles, is imagine this. Okay, well, hold on, wait, wrong thing. He just stepped down, okay, literally on the 17th of September. Like within, maybe that was the day that Diddy was arrested. I forget the exact date he was arrested. Within days of Diddy being arrested, Kevin Liles steps down as the CEO from 300 Entertainment. Is there a coincidence there? I don't know. It's odd timing, right? We've had a bunch of major CEOs and music CEOs stepping down around the same time that Diddy has been indicted and arrested. So the fact this guy steps down is just strange, right? Odd timing. Is he tied into this somehow? I don't know. But going back to this, Cohen. So what's interesting here is that you see is that oftentimes folks like this are involved in all kinds of philanthropic ventures, whether they're building schools in Haiti or, delivering, much needed medication and vaccines to the starving children in Africa. Right? They've got the agenda going everywhere. So what's interesting here is that this guy is if we kind of, come down here to his post stuff. Anyway, philanthropy. So he's currently on the board of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and he's an acting director for the New York-based charitable organization Boys and Girls Harbor. Right. So whenever I see these kinds of people that are involved in like this kind of stuff, and they're overseeing like boys and girls clubs, or it reminds me of like the Child Protection Services and what the kind of stuff they're doing. But here's what's crazy, okay? So we've now established that there's a lot of evidence that seems to point to some underage stuff going on within the rap industry. You have this guy who's the founder of this massive, 300 Entertainment that was simultaneously, had ties. He's got major ties to Diddy, okay, by, huge connections there. His CEO just steps down, but check this out. This is strange, okay? Back in 2016, the Boys and Girls had a huge thing saluting Diddy, right? So the club that Cohen oversees had a big party, the Boys and Girls Club in Manhattan, and here he is, and here's Cohen with his Chinese wife, right? Is it a coincidence? I don't know. It's hard to say. My job is just to kind of pull together the information. That's all I really want to do. Right? If I showed you the research I did just for this show, I probably have like 100 different links and articles and tweets and videos. And it was actually it was really difficult. Like I could have turned all this information into like a 4-part series. It goes so deep. And the more you start digging, the more you uncover. And what you look for is you look for patterns, right? Like when you're investigating something, you say, okay, well, this guy was tied in here. It's like those classic movies where they have like he's like the private investigator, and he has the cork board with the string and all the push pins and tying. That's what you do, right? That's how you figure this stuff out. But this stuff just goes deep. It goes deep. But now we're going to take like a big step back of all of this, okay? And look at how does this stuff play into this spiritual battle? And this is where it gets a little bit crazy. So there's a guy named John Todd, and he's a real guy, right? So this is an article from Christianity Today publication. They published an article about him right here, The Legends of John Todd. Okay, there's a lot of speculation about this guy, there's a lot of concerns. This was published in 1979. So this guy John Todd is a real character. And there's a lot of people that say that he is a conspiracy theorist, of course, but there's a lot of truth because he came out with some pretty crazy stuff about the music industry. And I'm going to play some of it for you. But there's been a lot of people that tried to discredit him, but he's a real person. And anyway, I'm going to play this video for you here. Okay. So actually it's not a video, it's more just audio. So this is a 2 minute and 16 second long audio recording of one of his speeches talking about what happens in the music industry. Because, okay, we looked at social engineering. We've looked at, okay, can we corrupt the masses to make money for the prison system? Can we create race wars in America? Can we export degenerate culture all around the world so that we can simultaneously create destructive and degenerative behavior all around the world because everyone thinks that's how America is, because that's how the rap or Hollywood is? To me, if you look at the role of culture, music, entertainment, etc., it is one of the greatest tools of Satan. It is absolutely something that has been hijacked by Satan. And so when you listen to what John Todd is talking about, what goes behind the scenes, it makes perfect sense. So listen to this. It's 2 minutes, 16 seconds long.
All the concert booking agencies in the United States. And that's not even the name of the company that owns it. The name of the company that owns it is Brenner Enterprises. And Brenner Enterprises is owned by Chase Manhattan. Chase Manhattan's owned by Standard Oil, and Standard Oil is owned by the Lords of London. You can track it on back. You kind of get the idea after a while. But I was the managing president of Zodiac Productions. It's one of my jobs as being one of these 13 people. Thus, I got to know many of the people who produce music and sing the music and play the music that you play. Now, one of the closest friends that I got during that time that I obtained was a man named David Crosby. I said, David, I'd like to ask you a couple questions. I said, I already know the answers, but I've been gone for 5 years. I'd like to know if certain things are still the way they were when I left. I said, do they still take the master to the temple room? Dave said, yeah. I said, do they still have the coven conjure demons into the master? He said, of course. I said, now, I got to know something. What's the main reason for rock music? He says, the same as when you were in, so that we can play spells on people that we couldn't cast spells upon. The master is a tape about as big as the top of this podium that looks like an overgrown 8-track that the album is cut on and is placed in a machine that produces and presses the records and the 8-tracks and cassettes that you buy. After it's been recorded, it's taken in. This is why a master's cut months in advance before it's released. On the full moon, it's taken in to a temple room about the size of this auditorium that is in every one of the major music companies, behind locked doors up in the executive offices. And it's placed on an altar sitting in the north of the room, and a pentagram engraved in the floor. And 13 hand-chosen witches and wizards and a coven come in and conjure a principality or a power up, usually Regia or something like that, and order him to tell the demons under him to follow every record and every tape coming off of that master. I said, okay, one last thing. I've been hearing that you must be an initiated witch now to get a record contract. He said, that's right. He says, many of us that weren't total witches have to be witches now in order to produce music.
Man, so to summarize that, and what he's saying there, and he's given extensive stuff. I will warn you, though, that if you are someone that maybe you hate modern music, like for me, I'm disgusted by most modern music, But I grew up listening to the classics. I grew up with Pink Floyd and all the Led Zeppelin. But I'll warn you, if you listen to John Todd, it makes you second guess everything, because when you look at this stuff, like here he's talking, I think to was it Crosby? I think he was talking. I think it was Crosby, Stills, and Nash about this stuff. It's like, oh, it wasn't just about like the Tavistock Institute and make love not war and the social engineering. That's the thing, is that everything that you see happening in our society happens at layers, right? So you have like at the bottom you have the social engineering that oftentimes is about financial incentives, right? So you look at the rap stuff. Okay, yeah, let's make these guys bad and we can make some money at the prisons. But the more you follow it up, then you realize it's actually social engineering on a much bigger scale, which is all about destroying societies, collapsing nations, creating mass chaos. But when you follow it up even higher, you realize it's all spiritual. Because you then trace the threads up and you get to the point where you arrive at where you say, you know what, this is actually it's about Satanism. It's about good and evil. It's about corrupting the souls of mankind. And that's what you see happening. And so I've done this so many times. You trace these things to the end and you arrive at that. You arrive at the place where you're like, you know what, I cannot deny the fact that this is absolutely a spiritual battle of good versus evil. And so what John Todd was saying in that specific segment I played there for you was what they would do is that before, and again, this is all speculative. Is it true? I don't know. But to me, it actually makes more sense than most things I come across. Is that what they do? They have the master, right? So the master was the final physical, file, right, of the sound of the song. Okay, that was the master. So what he said is that, and he talks more about this in other instances as well, was that there's this big room like the size of an auditorium on a specific floor in the headquarters of these music companies, these big music labels, music records. And this, what they do though, is that before that master goes out, before the song is released, before the album is released, they actually go through and they've got a satanic ritual where honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if there's sacrifice involved. I mean, there's, whether it's human or children or animals, etc. But basically what he's saying is that they have a satanic ritual where they invite these evil entities, these demons, or maybe Satan himself, into the master. And they basically set forth that you will now infect everyone that listens to this. So that young kid that's like, me as a kid, right? Like, admittedly, when I was in grade school, my parents were, relatively strict. I wasn't allowed to have things like AC/DC and Metallica, but I still got a hold of them. So I had a Metallica cassette tape. I remember, I think it was Metallica Black, and I had an AC/DC cassette tape. And so when my parents weren't around, I'd listen to these things, right? Because it was cool. And who doesn't like Angus Young and all this stuff? And James Hetfield. I was a huge Metallica fan. But according to what John Todd is saying, is that what they're doing is that behind these albums that they're putting out there for the public, they're actually casting satanic spells so that anybody who listens to these albums and actually has this satanic spell come over them and change their behavior, take charge of their soul, whatever. Is it that far-fetched? Look, maybe 10 years ago, you'd call me a whack job, but I mean, honestly, is it that far-fetched? I mean, to me, it makes more sense than most things I come across these days. But it's crazy though. And I saw someone's comment of saying, gosh, this goes deep. Yeah, it does go deep. And I feel like I'm only giving you about 30% of the research I did just for this show. I mean, this stuff it's crazy what's going on here. But what you realize, and it's scary, but it's also good because they know it's a spiritual war, right? So this is the great thing about it. If we were just up against like greedy politicians and greedy bankers, and all they wanted was to make more money, and they wanted to control us and enslave us, maybe we'd be screwed. But when you realize that as you trace it up to the highest points of this pyramid, that to them, it's a spiritual battle, it's good versus evil. It's like, okay, I can fight on that playing ground. I can meet you on that battlefield. Right. And that's what I come to is it's like, okay, well, it's about faith. It's about God. It's about good versus evil. But I mean, this is just, I'm not sure. Let me know in the comments what you think about this episode, because this was just a wild episode. And the more I started researching, it was just like, oh my goodness, where is this going? But if we want to understand where we're at today, we have to understand these things. Like when you look around and you see, like, scroll through Twitter, like every 6th video is a video of some black kids beating up a white kid. right? And I think it's intentional. I think it's intentionally trying to make the whites angry against the blacks. It's trying to stir up race wars. But the fact is, it's still happening, right? It's still happening. But when you look at what's happening with the music, it's like, oh, it makes sense. And so when you take all this and you put it into the perspective of the overall social engineering, it's like, yeah, it all makes sense. That the social engineering fundamentally is about corrupting human souls. That's their number one goal. That's Satan's number one goal. I will destroy God's greatest creation. I will destroy the DNA through these mRNA injections. I will destroy their morality. I will destroy their family. I will destroy their even their sexual nature. I will turn men into women. I will turn women into men. I will destroy their fertility. I will remove the ability for young women to have children because they took hormone blockers, or for young men to have families because they castrated themselves in an effort to become a woman. And this is what's playing out. Like, this is what's playing out in our society. It's crazy, but these are the times we live in. These are the times that we live in. I mean, it's wild, but I feel like there's something special about me. There's something special about you, that God chose us to be here at this time. Right? That's the only way I can make sense. I was chosen, right? To, do what I'm doing right now. This is my way of fighting this battle. I was chosen for this, and it gives me energy. So I've got, I know I try to end with some positive things, and actually I've got a positive message for you from Richard Nixon. As funny as that sounds, actually, before I show you that, I've got one more thing to show you. Okay, Bob Dylan. Of course, Bob Dylan. Check out this interview, and again, if you want to, if you still are not convinced that Satan is involved in this and there's a battle of good and evil, watch this video. I'll full screen it for you so you can enjoy it in all its glory.
Why do you still do it? Why are you still out here?
Well, it goes back to the destiny thing. I mean, I made a bargain with it, a long time ago, and I'm holding up my end.
What was your bargain?
To get where I am now.
Should I ask who you made the bargain with?
with the chief commander.
On this earth?
And this earth, and then in a world we can't see.
You ever look at music that you've written and look back at it and say, whoa, that surprised me?
I used to. I don't do that anymore. I don't know how I got to write those songs.
What do you mean you don't know how?
Well, those early songs were like almost magically written. Darkness at the break of noon, shadows even the silver spoon, a handmade blade, a child's balloon.
Eclipses both the sun and moon. To understand, you knew too soon. There is no sense in trying.
This Dylan classic, It's All Right, Ma, was written in 1964.
Piece the hollow horn, plays wasted words, proves to warn that he not busy being born, is busy dying.
Well, try to sit down and write something like that. There's a magic to that, and it's not Siegfried and Roy kind of magic. It's a different kind of a penetrating magic.
So here, I mean, Bob Dylan, he's the famous story of the guy who sold his soul to the devil. Here he admits it, and you can see it. That the interviewer is like, "So why are you still doing this? Right? Why are you still, And he's like, "It's my agreement. I made an agreement with the commander." And you can see the commander. It's like, yeah, like he signed a contract to give his soul to Satan in exchange for fame. What's also interesting in the second half of that video is he's asking about, like, can you still create this music? And he's referencing how he doesn't know how he made some of his earlier music, that it was magic, right? So again, I mean, who knows? Maybe it was some sort of witches and covens, and I mean, who knows what actually led to the creation of this music? But I've heard all kinds of other theories. I mean, wild theories. Like, you get into Donald Marshall, and there's all kinds of crazy stuff about how music is created and what comes about. But then what you realize, and here's the wild part in all of this, is that when you take a step back, what we've looked at right now, we are just looking at the hip hop industry. That's it. We're not talking about Hollywood. We're not talking about the education system. We're not talking about the banking industry. We're not talking about, the politics. I mean, we're just talking about one sliver of our society, which is just hip hop. And look how deep it goes. I mean, honestly, I think that almost everything that we see around us is being engineered to control us. And we can break out of that, of course, if we have free will. It's God's gift. We can choose. But it's wild to think about, gosh, if this is going on in the hip hop industry, like what's going on in Washington, D.C.? That's one of my questions. Like, what kind of weird stuff's going on there? Are they casting spells? Are there witches and warlocks? And I mean, like pizza, Comet Pizza type stuff. I mean, it goes deep. But I promised you something from Richard Nixon. And honestly, the funny thing is that the more I keep diving into all this stuff, the more I realize is that almost everything we've been taught is a lie. And not just a lie, but it's the inverse of the truth. And you start realizing, as you research this, you're like, oh wait, this guy's he's like a villain in every history book, but he's actually was like a good guy. Right. And so with Nixon, it's like, was Nixon actually a good guy? I mean, he was brought down. You realize it's like, yeah, was it the CIA that brought him down? Actually, there's a good chance of. But anyway, I want to show you this. It's a 1-minute video that I think was because we've focused so much on like the mega rich and selling your soul to achieve everything. This just felt like the perfect antidote to that. So check this out. Here's about a minute long. It's Mr. Nixon. Thank you, Mr. Nixon.
The unhappiest people of the world are those in the watering places, the international watering places like the south coast of France and Newport and Palm Springs and Palm Beach, going to parties every night, playing golf every afternoon, then bridge, drinking too much, talking too much, thinking too little, retired, no purpose. And so, well, I know there are those who totally would disagree with this and say, gee, boy, if I could just be a millionaire, that would be the most wonderful thing. If I could just not have to work every day, if I could just be out fishing or hunting or playing golf or traveling, that'd be the most wonderful life in the world. They don't know life, because what makes life mean something is purpose, a goal, the battle, the struggle. Even if you don't win it. The unhappiest.
I really, really appreciate that message. That's my life. It's a struggle. It's a battle. It's what I'm doing here, right? This is my battle. This is my purpose, which is great. Like having a sense of purpose in what you're doing. It's the best feeling ever. I want to bring attention to one comment actually that was made by Echo 1970, who says that people can sell out to the devil, but the soul belongs to God. I agree with you on that. And actually, I remember it's like, okay, who kicked who out of heaven? It's a good point that even if somebody sells their soul to the devil, if they go to the devil and they say, you know what, I've found God, and like I'm on God's side now, and I don't care, kill me if you want to, but I'm on God's side, that will break the contract. I really believe that. And this is also why, as much as there's these really bad people in our world that we're discovering and we're identifying, I try to go back to that point, is that maybe Diddy, hypothetically, is all the bad things that he's done. Maybe he's sitting in this prison cell and he has something hits him and he says, and he tears up that contract with Satan and says, you know what? I don't care if I die, like I'm going to give myself to God. Look at Justin Bieber, right? Who's, I guess, within the past couple of years has done the same thing, right? There's still opportunity for redemption, right? Even on the cross, hanging on the cross next to Christ, the guy still had an opportunity for redemption. So it reminds me to it's not about giving everyone a hall pass and saying, okay, well, you're all the evil you've done doesn't matter, but it's that like, I'm not in their shoes. I don't know what they've been through. I haven't been put into the compromising positions they've been in. And so I should try to just look at things from a very magnanimous position and say, look, this is between them and God. Okay. So folks, thank you for sticking around with such a long episode. I feel like this was actually one of my favorite shows to research and put together, even though it's very dark. I really do enjoy going deep into these subjects like this, because to me, this is how we understand what's happening in the world. This is very, very important. I will say that if you enjoyed this show, I have a few small requests. One is give it a like. Right? If you're watching on Rumble, give it a like. If you haven't followed me yet on Rumble, make sure you do. Hit that green follow button. I put out 4 or 5 shows like this every single week. Deep dives, good interviews, etc. So that's one request. But the other thing, the number one thing you can do if you want to help me is to share this video. If you found that this was educational or helpful or eye-opening, if you had a lot of aha moments, whether you watch the video or listen to the podcast, share it with a friend. It really, really helps because unfortunately, like the algorithms of the big media companies, YouTube, big tech, et cetera, they hate me because I speak the truth or I speak what I believe to be the truth. I'm honest about what I'm trying to speak and they don't like it actually. So that prevents me from reaching a lot more people than I really should be. So whenever you help out by sharing, that really, really helps move things along. The other thing you can do is just supporting my sponsors as well. So, Noble Gold, I'll bring that up one more time. If you want to support, this is what allows me to be an independent media. This is why I can talk about these things and not have someone say, hey, Seth, you can't say that on air. It's like, no, I'll say whatever I want to. If I believe this is true, I will say whatever I want to because I own Man in America. I'm Man in America. No one owns me. But I do that because I have sponsors that help me do this because I've got a lot of equipment. I've got staff that help me. So it's a real production. So when you support the sponsors that help me, that's another great way. So again, if you've got some money sitting in say an IRA or 401k that you're thinking about it, just call Noble Gold. So 626-654-1906 or goldwithseth.com. The other thing though, actually my other company just is Heaven's Harvest, right? So here's a quick question. Do you think that there might be some sort of crazy chaos during the election, before the election, after the election? If you do, my number one question for you is how much food do you have set aside? I mean, it's a very serious question because there could be a day, any day, where you can no longer go to the grocery store to buy some more food. So having my recommendation is at least 3 months per person in your household. And look, maybe you only get to a month, but anyway, storable food, so important right now. So important. So heavensharvest.com. I've vetted a bunch of different companies. There's a lot of companies that sell these food buckets that are full of just cheap junk like Kool-Aid type stuff and pudding to make their calorie count high. So that way it's cheaper per calorie. Heaven's Harvest, these guys are great Christian patriots, high quality food. And if you use promo code Seth, S-E-T-H, you get to save 15% off your entire order. So also, I'm going to be doing a lot more some prepping stuff. I've actually, I've got some really cool projects kind of in the works I'll be announcing very soon as it relates to prepping. I'll be doing a bunch of shows. I may even be writing a book about it, which I'll be releasing somewhat soon. So anyway, we'll see. Well, I don't make any promises yet, but anyway, that's it. Thank you, folks. Thank you so much for sticking with me. What a great show. I hope you enjoyed it. I appreciate all the comments. I'm sorry there's a couple of trolls in there. I have to do my best to get rid of those people. And yeah, I look forward to it. So I'll be coming back again. You'll see me on Monday. So next week it should be Monday through Friday. I think you'll see shows coming out 10 p.m. Eastern. That's the show's always published is 10 p.m. Eastern. So make sure that you're subscribed or you're following on Rumble. And I'll see you then. So folks, thank you so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening and we'll see you. Take care.